What's up guys, my name is Matt and welcome to the first of 3 videos I'll be posting over the next couple days where I talk about the state of patrols, the method I've hinted about on Twitter that has gained me nearly 100 faction levels in just under a month, and a proof of concept of what I've been testing over this last month. But this first video, however, will be about the state of patrols. To anyone who's followed me on Twitter knows that I've done 1,000+ patrols in the Plaguelands since the launch of Rise of Iron. For everyone else, I'm telling you right now, I've done 1,013 patrols as of this video being recorded. This wasn't done to say, look at me, I probably have one of the most meaningless world records for most patrols completed in Destiny Rise of Iron, even though I don't have any confirmation of that, or look at me, I did a lot of things in the game. But instead, I wanted to make sure people wouldn't question my knowledge on the topic, as well as most of these patrols were required to accomplish the other videos that will be posted in the coming days. With that all the way, let's get into everything wrong with patrols. I will say this though, I don't want that to be taken as everything is wrong with patrols, but instead that there are things that can be approved upon with patrols overall. While this video is primarily focused on the Plaguelands, everything I say can be applied to the other 5 locations we patrol in Destiny. So let's get this started. In this video, I'll be breaking down each area in the Plaguelands one by one and talking about the issues with each specific one. To start, Lord's Watch. Lord's Watch has 2 patrol beacons and can spawn every type of patrol except for quarantines. I do understand that not every area needs a quarantine, although I personally don't see why this one can't. Lord's Watch can only spawn one type of assassination, and that is nature versus nurture, which takes us to Bunker Triglav, an area itself that is completely unused in patrols, but I will discuss that when I discuss this area later. But as I said, the assassination patrols will always be nature versus nurture if it spawns in Lord's Watch. This could easily be approved upon by simply having a chance for it to be a splicer target instead, or anything other than the same wizard every time. You could even have it send us in the opposite direction into Foundry 113, another completely unused area in patrols. Again, something I will discuss later. Moving away from the assassination patrols, the kill and collect patrols work for this area, seeing as they're such a simple concept. But the issue with this type of patrol is that if 2 of these patrols spawn in Lord's Watch, it is nearly impossible to complete them without either having to wait or leaving the area entirely. This may seem like a minor gripe by someone such as myself who has done 1,000+ patrols, but for most of the community, it's a get in and get out kind of mentality when it comes to patrols, and having to wait or move wastes time. And this wasted time comes from 2 things. The spawn rates in Lord's Watch are way too slow, and the spawns being so easily blocked by others in the area, that being coupled with the same people killing everything in Lord's Watch, the kill and collect patrols in this area become something that I grab and leave the area instantly to avoid wasted time. By simply increasing the spawn rates, adding variety to the assassination patrol, and potentially adding a quarantine could vastly improve this area. For me, when I patrol, I usually move from Lord's Watch to the Rocket Yard, so that's the area I'll talk about next. This area I personally don't have a ton of gripes about. It has quarantines, it has kill and collect and scouting patrols, but lacks assassination patrols. Outside the Plaguelands, the Cosmodrome version of the Rocket Yards has assassination patrols that take you into the refinery to kill a wizard, knight, or captain target. By simply adding this to the Plaguelands version of the Rocket Yards would add the variety this area needs. Next, let's move on to the Divide. This area functions not much differently than its Cosmodrome counterpart. Kill, collect, scouting, and assassination patrols all can spawn in this area, but lacks quarantine patrols. Again, as I said, not every area needs a quarantine, but it wouldn't hurt. However, I'm not going to tear into this area like I'm going to the others. This area is jam-packed with enemies and has the variety I personally feel that makes this area fun to patrol in. I will even back this claim by going as far to debunk a complaint I saw on Reddit a few days back. I saw a complaint that stated public events in the Plaguelands, while vastly better with Rise of Iron's launch, they lack variety. And one part of the complaint mentioned the Divide specifically, and stated that every time a public event's in the Divide, it's always the Splicer Walker, and I'm going to debunk this right now. I have had a war set land in the Divide. While I didn't record footage of this occurring, I did grab this screenshot. But I will say this, I was completing my 895th patrol when I saw this for the first time. So while I can prove that the Splicer Walker isn't the only public event that spawns this area, I will say it's super rare to not be a Splicer Walker, and I can see why a majority of the community would assume the war set can't happen here. With all that said, this is one of the few areas in the Plaguelands that I enjoy and wouldn't mind if it stayed the same, but there's a lot more to cover, so let's keep moving. The order I'm covering these areas follow the path that I normally take when I patrol, and the next two areas, the Giant Husk and the Archon's Keep, I try to avoid like the plague. They feel clunky, misused, and even outright broken, and are my least favorite areas in the Plaguelands. But of those two, let's talk about the Giant Husk first. The Giant Husk is exactly as the name states. It's giant and it's an empty husk. It has 3 patrols, but so little of it is used. There's an entire cargo ship at the top that is only used in one situation for one scouting mission where you stand on one spot on one crane. That entire area up top could be used for another assassination mission or could even have another patrol beacon added to it. In my 1,000 patrols, I've gone up there maybe 10 times, and every time it was simply to stand in the same spot on the same crane. A little variety wouldn't hurt this area. Not to mention the other ship that is only used in story missions and requires a splicer key to enter if you're patrolling on the other side of the Giant Husk. This is another awesome area for potential assassination patrol to have the target inside of, but instead is unused. I understand it requires a splicer key to enter, but splicer keys are so readily available, I don't see why we aren't led to use them for patrols themselves instead of something we use on occasion to open a chest for our 1,000th piece of spin metal that vendors never take. This next area is by far, in my opinion, the one area I dread having to go into when it comes to patrolling efficiently. Don't get me wrong, I like the Plaguelands, I like its layout, and if I'm not trying to be efficient, I like Archon's Keep. But if I'm trying to be quick about things, if I run out of patrols everywhere else, I don't like entering this area for one main reason: the anomaly. I understand why this patrol exists. It is a required part of the Gjallarhorn exotic questline, but instead of setting its priority so high that it spawns 3 times in the area, why isn't it either removed completely if the fire team leader has completed the quest, and if that isn't possible, why not give it one spawn location that 9 times out of 10 it spawns on? I understand I can just abandon it and it'll reroll the others in the area, but why should I not want to do something? This patrol requires a splicer key, further discrediting any reason Bungie may have for not having other patrols require them, but also awards a measly 12 and 27 Allegiance, Faction, and Vanguard reputation upon completion, and that 12 and 27 is if you have a class item with Vanguard rep boosted. I understand it's not in place to be a good source of reputation, and simply is the trigger for the Gjallarhorn questline. But if I have completed this quest, why have it so prominent if it isn't worth my time? The rest of Archon's Keep is so good, but I try to avoid it all the time because most of the time it's just 3 anomaly patrols. To round the area talk off, let's talk about the 2 areas I mentioned earlier, Bunker Triglav and Foundry 113. They're almost completely unused. Yes, Bunker Triglav has its place in strikes and story missions, and yes, Foundry 113 is the entrance to the raid, but other than that, they are wasted space. Bunker Triglav could easily have 2 more beacons in it. They can simply be kill or collect, maybe even add an assassination that takes you into the Siva battery. Yes, I understand the Siva battery requires a splicer key to enter, but I've already stated why I don't see this as a problem. This specific area is seen once in the story, and then we aren't driven in any way to visit it again. There are world artists over at Bungie that spent hours, days, and maybe even weeks making this area, and then Bungie themselves doesn't send us to them, and it doesn't make sense. As for Foundry 113, why are there no beacons in it? I was even talking to a friend about this while making this video, and one suggestion was maybe it's because it's the raid entrance, but I instantly remembered the entrance to the Vault of Glass. The entrance to the Vault of Glass is in fact the entrance to the raid, but has beacons in the area on patrol. Why doesn't this occur again? In the Plaguelands, there might be some sort of technical reason, but if they've done it before, I don't see why they can't do it again. Now, I briefly talked about public events when I spoke about the Divide. Even though, yes, in fact, there is diversity in the Divide, none of the other areas have any sort of diversity. Lord's Watch and the Giant Husk only spawn a Walker. The Rocket Yard and Archon's Keep only spawn a Warsat. I don't see why these areas could spawn both at random, even if in the same spot. Now, there could be some technical reason this didn't occur, but from my perspective as a non-developer, it just seems like they simply weren't implemented. In addition, Foundry 113 and Bunker Triglav could have a target like we have on other patrol areas. Mars has bulky Centurions and Minotaurs that spawn as public events. The Forgotten Shore in the Cosmodrome has a captain, and there's other areas that have these as well. Now, I understand Randall the Vandal was added as a raid Easter egg, but could have just as easily been added to Bunker Triglav or Foundry 113 as public events. There's so much potential with these areas, but it seems underused. In addition to everything else, I briefly want to mention a few bugs that I've come across during my patrolling. There are certain situations in the Rocket Yard where the Broodmother and her acolytes are 100% immune to all damage. This in itself is a problem. But in addition to this, they also seem to bug out and seem to just hover around the circle that spawns the quarantine, making the quarantine hard to complete in a timely manner, seeing as an invulnerable wizard and acolytes are constantly attacking you. This has also occurred in Lord's Watch and the Giant Husk, and even though I haven't personally experienced it, I'm certain this can happen anywhere a Broodmother can spawn. In addition to that, I've run into a few other instances of immune targets in the Plaguelands, specifically Splicer Walkers, but strangely these differ from the Broodmothers and aren't 100% immune. For some reason, the Splicer Walkers are vulnerable to supers, grenades, rockets, and any explosion proc from perks on weapons, but all other damage they're immune to, making them killable but a pain. Another two bugs I've run into are specifically tied to the Splicer laser grids. The first of these is them just simply not opening. This is a super rare occurrence and I've only seen it happen once, but I have put in a Splicer key to have the door not open and have the terminal simply say terminal rebooting. The second is tied directly to the anomaly. After opening the Splicer laser grid and entering the area with the Splicer Walker, on occasion, if you die while fighting the Walker, it won't spawn you in the same room, but instead spawns you outside the laser grid, which is now shut, and the terminal will be rebooting, making you either have to wait for the incredibly long cooldown to re-enter the area and finish the patrol, or forcing you to just simply abandon it. I'm certain there are other issues and bugs in the Plaguelands, but these are the ones that I've seen the most, and by the most, I mean once or twice. Now I will say this, I've spent the last X number of minutes complaining about the Plaguelands, and it seems like I hate the Plaguelands and its patrols, but I don't. I've done over 1,000 of them and plan on doing more for future projects similar to this. I love the Plaguelands, and I think it's one of, if not the best patrols in the game, but everything can be done better, and if by some chance this video changes future content for Destiny, then I don't see how this video hurts. So again, I like patrols. I like them a lot. Most people do their weekly routine and head into the Crucible, but me, I instead head to the Plaguelands and start patrolling. And even though 1,000 seems insane, I've enjoyed and probably will continue to enjoy it. And if Bungie sees this somehow and feels I'm wrong on 90% of this and changes nothing, it won't change my perspective on this area or patrols at all. Now I want to end this video by saying this entire project has taken me nearly a month to complete. And this is only the first of 3 videos. And with that, I want to say that I don't normally ask, but if you could share this video around to your friends, to Twitter, or any form of social media, I'd greatly appreciate it. There are 2 more videos on the way, so be on the lookout for those. But for now, I'm going to get out of here. Say my name is Matt, and I'll see you guys next time.